I met Michael in 1995 when I was doing a public affairs radio show that was syndicated at its height to as many as 18 stations a week. We met at the KZOK studios, and I took his book, Three Poems, which was current at the time, and I brought it with me to the Olympic National Park, climbed up to Appleton Pass, and then the next day to beyond Appleton Pass to a mountain where I was overlooking the Boulder Creek watershed, where we had seen bears and where we had seen a spring. And the first time I was up there, and I read from the book this single word, capitalized, double spaced in the center of the text, said, "More alive than I ought to be." And I looked at the scene and I thought, I think I know what he's talking about, because I felt hyper alive in a surreal way, a surreal kind of hyper reality, being up there in this ancient forest. So it was really quite remarkable, the combination of the work and the setting. And it's one of the keynote moments of my life. I visited that spot several times since and would like to again. So the interview that I did with him is available on my website, paulenelson.com. And if you just go to paulenelson.com and just in the search button put Michael McClure, you can come to it very easily. So we became friends and we stayed in touch. We brought him to Auburn once and then to Seattle a couple of times. And then the last time in Tacoma, also Orcas Island. He did a gig at Doe Bay, and I went with him and his wife Amy to Vancouver and saw his reading there. And we went to the Bill Reed Art Gallery, and it was wonderful to be able to spend time with him, to write the introduction to a couple of his books. And meeting him was one of the keynote moments of my life, one of the hugest influences in my life, probably one of the top two poet influences, along with Sam Hamill. So this book, Touching the Edge, I gave this to Ian Boyden, and he said he's never seen Zen poetry in English as vibrant as this. He just loves it. As a Zen practitioner, he has a sense. And on the back blurb is really worth checking out. The work of the celebrated beat poet Michael McClure has always been innovative. His book, Ghost Tantras, incorporated his beast language, a vocabulary of growls, roars, and moans interspersed with human speech. He co-wrote the Janis Joplin hit Mercedes-Benz, was literary mentor to the Doors singer Jim Morrison, and performs his poetry internationally with a piano accompaniment of keyboardist and composer Ray Manzarek. Plays such as The Beard, a discourse between Billy the Kid and Jean Harlow in a Blue Velvet Eternity, won him underground fame. While scratching the beat surface, his book was the first book-length account of the beat period by one of the movement's active members. And it says, now he's written poems unlike any of his others. These Dharma devotions are fruits of his Buddhist meditation practice. Like bold calligraphy moving vertically down a white scroll, they surprise the eye and mind, and so awaken us to a heightened sense of everyday things. And the book, Touching the Edge, Dharma Devotions from the Hummingbird Sangha. And they are in the house tonight. So I'm going to go at random and just pick a couple here and read them and go on to the next thing. 34. To give is the white hand with the long fingers and the eye in the palm, putting forth what is one, already arisen and long gone. The squawking of jays is a gift in the trees. Be in comfort, Chet Baker. Be in comfort, Jean-Michel Basquiat. There are waves and facets and overlappings and slidings of chunks and non-chunks slipping into the ordinary, empty roar of the lion. Plain as consciousness, not there. And then another one, 71. The news never changes. The big picture is there, and the eyes, ears, nose, skin, and tongue twist to become an apple or velvet. The jelly mass in the spring pond flowers into pollywogs, wriggling for tasty algae and the presence of salty surf on the ankles and calves, is a statue of neurons. In the mirror, streams flow to the waterfall, and Manjushri's snow lion coughs into a jeweled grotto as the flame sword swings. Turtles have good dreams sleeping in the mud, though we will never meet them. I go deeper into the future I make. So that's from Dharma Devotions from the Hummingbird Sangha. On the back there, it mentioned one of his plays, The Beard, which I was busted. The authorities arrested the performers, I think, after 11 consecutive performances, and they were always bailed out by a lawyer who had some dough. And, that was quite an experience, quite a happening. His play, Josephine the Mouse Singer, he told me once, is actually a treatise on projective verse. And I got this copy of the book, and he wrote here this inscription: Kafka by way of the creative and luminous cave, for Paul. And I'm just going to allude to a couple of passages here that may or may not give you some sense of what projective verse is, but who knows? I.e. that something extraordinary is in Josephine's singing. It is capable of calling the most profound attention from us, our deeper attention. Narrator: there are legends about singing that our tribe once sang, and some of those songs survive, but no one alive knows how to sing them. And we're sure of one thing: those are not the songs that Josephine sings. In fact, for some who listen to Josephine when she is with a group, there is no distinction in her voice from the folk piping that everyone practices while they work or after dinner. We pipe like this: beep, 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 beep. Everybody does. And then on to Josephine herself on page 32. They're right. They should trust me. They believe the fact that they listen hides from me my knowledge that their listening proves they cannot understand. If they knew what I was singing about, the secret crannies of the selves, they would not listen. They would flee. It is just too beautiful. Still, I can spread the songs wider if I can be free to explore. Then all will know joy and beauty. Josephine the Mouse Singer. I'm going to talk a little bit now about ghost tantras, and then get into his essay, Meat Science Essays. The Ghost Tantras came out as a 50-year edition, and there's something important to note here, which really just came to my attention in the last couple of weeks. Oh, by the way, he created a Ghost Tantra in the inscription of this one. Gur Paul Graginos Nao Sun Cups. Which I just love. In the introduction, he said, "You've never heard anything like this before. These are my personal songs, but anyone can sing them. Pronounce them as they are spelled, and don't worry about details. Use a natural voice and let the vibrations occur. They come from a swirling ball of silence that melds with outer sounds and thought." And I'm going to read my favorite one of this is number 51, and I read it at the Subud reading. I'm going to read it again. 51. I love to think of the red-purple rose in the darkness, cooled by the night. We are served by machines making satins of sounds. Each blot of sound is a bud or a star. Body eats bouquets of the ear's vista. Gar, budi, ears, nose, eyes, deem thou. No, nao, hrur, una, garumi, nadru, sirch, navi. The machines are too dull when we are lion poems that move and breathe. Juan we grur, han Dri Maikatoth Sharu Shri Vanot Med Es One Ethus Ro. And it looks on the page like that, so you can see. So I want to go to that ball of silence that he mentioned, and I'm going to read a little bit of this essay, which is the last in the second edition of Meet Science Essays. So this time that he's doing Ghost Tantras, and this time he's doing Meet Science Essays, is all around 1963, 64, 65, right? And in this, he signed it, Reason with a Kiss of Subud for Paul Nelson. And I asked him about Subud, and he had been open in Subud, and the people who were active in Subud in San Francisco in the late 50s and early 60s said that that Allen Ginsberg and Michael McClure were both open in Subud. Now they went on to various Buddhist practices, Zazen for Michael, Tibetan Buddhism for Allen. But in Subud, we believe that once someone is open, once they have contact with the great life force, it changes them. In fact, at a World Congress, someone said she wanted to start closing people. Some kind of spiritual clock, I think. I don't think that's possible. So that's why Subud is very careful about who gets that. But in this book, in this essay, Reason, it's the most wonderful description of a man doing Latihan that I've ever seen. And I'm only going to read not even a whole paragraph, but you'll get some sense. But he also here mentions that it comes from a ball of silence. That's what it is. I forget exactly where it is but in here, but he does mention that the source of this is a ball of silence inside him, which is the same thing he says for Ghost Tantras. So Reason, part 1. A man lies in sunlight on the floor. His eyes are closed. He does a yogic exercise of spontaneous stretching and muscle flexing. His body demands it. All he feels is a large blackness inside of head and body and the pleasure of the exercise. If his eyes were not already closed, the pleasure would shut them. He requires a liberty he does not receive in the normal processes of living. He groans, writhes, twists, denies himself nothing that the sinew and tendons and lung and heart request. He has allowed his consciousness to become a blank field. Now, a description of the women would be more elegant because I'm told the men are a lot more coarse when they do Latihan. So who knows what the female version of that. I'd love to see someone write it because it would be beautiful. So it's interesting to note that, and that's the next field of inquiry for me to look at Reason, Latihan, and the Ghost Tantras. And you know, in Josephine the Mouse Singer, you may remember that he talked about how these are his songs. And in Latihan, you often come up with spontaneous songs that are just improvised for the moment. And it's a really beautiful detoxifying practice that reconnects one with the divine life force, is what Subud people are told and believe. There are a couple of essays I've written about his work: Projective Verse, The Spiritual Legacy of the Beat Generation, and an essay called Inside Dolphin Skull. I have a handout, and I'm going to put it in the chat room. Let me see if I can do that now to everyone. Is that the one? Yeah, so that you can read that PDF. And then I'd like to close my presentation by reading long swaths of this poem, the first poem that I read of Michael's, that changed my head forever. My experience was like Miles Davis going into the sandwich, the juke joint, whatever it was in St. Louis or Alton, Illinois, and hearing Charlie Parker on the jukebox and just having his mind blown and always wanting to recreate that experience in jazz and always falling short. Well, my experience in poetry is trying to recreate the experience of this poem and always falling short. So I'm going to read as much of this I can as I'm allotted time, and then we'll open it up with huge gratitude for everybody who's attended. And the introduction to this poem, by the way, is also so important and so influential. He writes, I wrote all three poems here spontaneously in projective verse, using the syllable and the energy of the breath as the structure of the poem. To write spontaneously does not mean to write carelessly or without thought and deep experience. In fact, there must be a vision and a poetics that are alive and conscious. Dolphin Skull, 1995, stanzas and memories. Epigraph, lap proverb. The memories of one's youth make for long, long thoughts. So the owl hoots, turquoise, musk, white linen. Deer in the yard, a stag with antlers. Boyhood in the park of the body that smells like the ocean as it washes on the greensward. Your blue eyes. You looking with love. I'll leave you, and I ought to be scared as my skin wrinkles. The boy dreams of grandpa. As I get huger, I become streams stretching in shadows of memories. Just as I taste the blackberry, as the tiny white flies flurry around it, there is the blood where the thorn cuts me. Helicopters clatter over the canyon in sunlight. Blackness is just a mask of fat for somebody. The tiny white flies are making a cloud in the tears of the brambles, swarming around the dark fruit. The clouds are alive. This cloud is a life. This cloud is a life as the great horned owl hoots three calls. The pony of memory tramples the rattlesnake. Sunset colors of apricot and layers of black over the ocean. A puff of summer dust where the buckeye butterfly lands. Mystic wings of planets and scarlet nebulae. A lock on the machine gun under the bed. Faces twisted in pain from the old times when love hurt so much that it is spotlights filled with legs and mouths writhing. Nylon stockings filled with sentimental songs are stained with blackberry juice like my fingers, and I love you. Your blue eyes. Crinkle of frost on the windows. This is all fog off the ocean coming over the line of brown hills. Tailgating drivers behind me with stoic faces of Arnold Schwarzenegger. The city is a mammal vision in peaks of fog. Jack Pumpkinhead is laughing with the Tin Man, and an axe chops through it all, showing the dry grain and the whorls. Raphael found the rules and was freed. The cloud that Raphael found is the rules of freedom. Dark green shamrocks grow in a bowl where dead friends live in dreams. Sounds of blue black jays screaming. My arm around Robert, helping him into my car. Crazy John's new book is like your poetry, I say, showing him the fine printing. How? It's the elegance, I answer. The gray-brown moth flutters over the brick red and scarlet and blue of the prayer rug. You, your blue eyes, the daintiness of your ankle, your deep wit. These are the reasons I am alive. Miro knows it is all play, and Pollock understands the unconscious power. Now there are lions in the woodwork. Now I smell my grandma as she looks at me through her thick glasses. Now I understand the sexual addiction of my young manhood was a crucifixion, glittering and lovely as an ostrich boa and smashed mirrors, seen on acid. Eagles seen on acid are the rules that are broken in old poetry. The fierce eye, the neighing hand of the boy, the cracks with festoons of dust on the yellowing plaster ceiling, broken old car doors tied shut with ropes. Please come and take care of me is the child's prayer, grimly pleaded into a black eternity, becoming the bulk of the body. My God, no, don't do this to me. My God, my God, my God, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. I am alone in Grandpa's dark basement praying to you. I don't want to become an eagle when I die. Don't let the flames burst from this sooty smoke. There is the endless concrete freeway in the sun, then the cool fog. I have blown up and cooked myself over a fire. Smell the pot roast and the noodles. I can hear my eardrums burst. Toes on damp moss. Broken shells in sand. Broken shells in sand are not superhuman. Everything is divine. The body is the soul, the intelligent body. Cries from the sand are little crab's eyes, creepy and bright, and the musky smell of decaying algae and sunshine. The cold wind makes chilblains and bumps on the skin. Going back to the moment of the Big Bang. The Big Bang is the consciousness of lions dispersing the eagles. An eagle lands on the bare tree by the car and tears up a rabbit. Souls are dead babies. You know these things, like the smell of new tires while flight after flight of planes with bombs pass over. I am still here just as I ever was. I am furious and fragile and trembling just as I ever was. Begging is heroic. Striding as free as spirit can in its swirls, breaking up rainbows of agonies into actions. Part of this dark flow that is turned over and over by the hands of light with fingernails of movies of suns spraying the darkness, gray hair on the floor. Gray hair on the floor and the radio talking, steering wheel, more real than anything else. Foggy yellow lights in the tunnel. Skinny, addled, wrinkled, childlike, old Horowitz playing Scriabin on TV. Me playing this beautiful pen. More alive than I ought to be. More alive than I ought to be. Oceans and freeways of grief and guilt, triumphs of bare feet and drugs up the nose, child of cocaine and raccoons in hollow logs. Fusus cryptestae filet, nature loves to hide herself. In Leonardo's secret language and the dimensions that disappeared after the bang. Old men dreaming of great-grandfathers are very wise, like sow bugs and wooden spools wound with scarlet thread, and an antlered buck that drinks from a bowl in the yard in moon shadows. Thank you, Michael. So Amy McClure is here, and I don't know if she wants, I don't want to put Amy on the spot, but I do want to note that there's a view of Michael's library and altar, and Amy, if you'd like to say something, you're welcome to do that.
Thank
Matt,
you, Paul.
there we go.
Thank you for that reading. The beginning of the dolphin skull bit that you read, I've heard him do on stage with Ray Manzarek so many times that it was very moving to hear you read it. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. I'm grateful to you. For your friendship. I'm grateful to Michael for all that he stood for, all the ways he used his life force in his lifetime. And I think about him every day. I think about that poem every day, and I'm grateful that it came into my life in the way it did. Transformational experience.
The morning after Michael passed, I got a an email from Shepard Powell, who is Diane DePrima's partner. And he said, Diane wrote this last night, early this morning, in memory. When Michael went to New York, I guess it was around 1960, he had heard of Diane and went to visit her, and they just sat up all night talking and became fast friends. And Shepard sent this little poem. It goes, we ran to the east river at dawn, shouting Shelley to the stars. So let me just show you, and the folks here on the Zoom piece. Whoops. And here's in all of those photos, there is Diane and Michael together. Let me pull it out here so it can be seen a little better. There they are, Michael and Diane. But so many friends, so much family have contributed to this kind of shrine for Michael. Flowers from, which are about finished from what Michael called Gins Corp, from Peter Hale and from Bob Rosenthal. A drawing, a portrait of Michael. Let's see if we can get that on here, the portrait of Michael, which he didn't really like because it portrayed him as a young man. The artist who drew it did it in trade with Michael for some books he wanted. But Michael was expecting, I think, a poem or a drawing from the current times, and he did it from memory when he first knew Michael as a student. His Michael's Blake and the other bits of the altar. In the Zen Buddhist tradition, we put a name card and a photograph on the altar. And then after 49 days, 7 weeks of 7 days of chanting for Michael every morning, I'm to burn the name card and put the photograph back where it goes in the house. And then once a year on the anniversary of his death, to bring the photograph back and chant another sutra for Michael until the day I die. So that is Michael's altar that I'm sharing with you guys. Hey Bhakti, good to see you. I can't hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you very much for sharing that beautiful altar, beautiful tradition from Zen. Just really appreciate it. And good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah. I hope we get to see each other soon in real person after all this COVID-19.
Yeah, I would love that.
Come visit. We'll cook for you.
There you go. I'm gonna do a road trip when all this is over. One of my stops after seeing your grandson in Eureka and another one in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I'm gonna involve Seattle and hopefully the islands on that road trip.
In Tallahassee.
Oh, there he is. Hi, Michael. In Tallahassee, you bet.
Better, if I hear that you're out on the road and you don't come out this way, I'm going to be brokenhearted.
When I go on the road to see you, I'm gonna rent a car after I land.
Okay. Love to you.
Love to you too. Good to see you.
Same here.
Wow, it's been a long time since Joanne's memorial.
Well, actually, after Cosmos passed away.
Oh, that's right. Oof, too much death.
Too much death.
That's what Baker Roshi said after our friend Judith passed. Too much stuff.
Good to see you.
Thanks, Amy.
Very good.
So Matt, do you want to open things up for questions or discussion?
PhD in poetry and translation.
Sorry, I unmuted everybody and it went to a little bit of chaos here. But if anyone wants to read poems by Michael, go ahead and message me. First up, we're going to have Brendan is going to read one, and then we've got Richard who's going to read, and then I'll open it up. If I unmute everybody, it'll just bounce around a bit too much with the chaos. So send me a message in the chat, and I'll get you on the list then. But go ahead and unmute yourself if you're up to read. And I'll hand it over to Brendan then.
Okay. Oh, I'm Brendan McBrain. I'm a friend of Paul's from a long time. And I guess Paul introduced me to Michael's work. And recently, I've just kind of been immersing myself in it. And I have a short piece here that's been rattling around in my head that I'll read. It's just Mysterioso 6. Pause. To all pause, living and dead, nebulae glitter on claw tips by soft pink pads. No pause to smell the bosomy fennel in vacant lots by crumbling red bricks. When the rain starts, a deer at the top of the hill, mist and a star in his antlers. I am here without pause, searching for the trillion billion senses. Disprove all but imagination, inspiration, and the reflections and counter-reflections of energy, sowbugs sleeping in cold owl burrows, dream destinies, and fire. Thank you, guys.
Okay, and then Richard Olafson wanted to read. I'll unmute you here, Richard.
Unmute yourself.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, I think you are.
Hello, everyone, and hello, Amy. And it's very sad moment. Michael McClure was one of the unique individual poets that ever walked the earth. He was certainly one of the great ones, and personally, he's been a poet that I've followed and responded to all my life, and it all started when I read this article in Rolling Stone in 1970 on the death of Jim Morrison, and that led me to Michael's poetry. And for me, he's been a poet that I've returned to over and over again, because he, whenever my life is falling apart, I go to Michael McClure, and he brings order out of chaos, and a very meaningful poet. I'm here with my wife, Carol Sokoloff, who has had the honor of performing behind Michael for 2 Victoria concerts, and Carol, I'll tell a quick story about Carol. And when I met Carol, her first words to me were, why do you have so many Michael McClure books?
He was carrying them.
I met Carol in an art gallery, and I was visiting my mom in Banff, and whenever I feel the need to organize my life, I always pick up Michael McClure, and I picked up 20 books of by Michael McClure, all the obscure ones like Hail Thee Who Pray and little chapbooks. And I carried a stack of them into this gallery, hoping to find a place to sit down and read. And Carol was at a adjoining art show, and she walked up to me and asked me, "Why do you have so many Michael McClure books?" Because she had just finished a workshop that Sherry D. Wilson put on in Calgary. And I didn't know that she had taken this workshop or anything about it. It was just Michael McClure for me was a particularly individual poet that brings
So we blame Michael.
for our past 30 some years. And so I like to read one of his Mad Sonnets, which is probably one of the greatest love poems ever written. And it's Mad Sonnet 1. The plumes of love are black. The plumes of love are black and delicate, oh, and shine like moron-eyed plumes of a peacock with violet shine and yellow on shadowy black. And they spray from the body of the beloved, veins shaking in air. And I do not want black plumes or agony, and I do not surrender, and I ask for noble combat to give pure love as best I can with opened heart. Love, I have not seen you before, and you're more beautiful than a plume. Stately striding in space and warm, your human breasts. Let me make your smile and heart-shaped face immortal. Your gray eyes are what I finally come to with my brown, and your high cheeks and your hair, rough for a woman's, like a lamb, and the walking virtue that you are. Can I read one more poem?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'll read from Persian Pony, Michael's final book. And it was a great honor for Michael to include a poem dedicated to me. So I'd like to read this. It's called Light, 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 for Richard Olson. Protein life is the gift of meat. Protein is the substrate embracing the molecule charged with light. Protein life is the gift of meat. Protein is the substrate embracing the molecule charged with light. Light shape changes the substrate in a snap. Spangling molecule and protein wrestle with non-measurable energy. And vision, seeing, is birthed. In the exuberance, imagining, giving presence for light and dark. Space, oceans of matter and photons, breeding flesh for the taste of stars and apricots. No time, no, never, spare ever. Not even a body, no spirit, everything present as a great haiku. What spirit is light in my eyes? A trillionic, rare angel, trembling and seeing the beginningless. Thank you, Michael, for walking, striding this earth, and being a part of the human race, however briefly. And you know, he will endure. And I have a Michael McClure tribute page up on my website, and you can go to ecstasis-seditions.com, and there's a number of essays on that. I think I put one of your essays up there, Paul, that was published in the PRRB some time ago. So I hope you don't mind. I didn't I didn't ask your permission, but I reposted. So and yeah, thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Richard. Next up, we've got El Habib Loué. El Habib, if you want to take over, I'll unmute you here.
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you so much for organizing this, dear brother Paul Nelson. And I'm so happy to be here with you all. For me, Michael McClure was a torch that I would personally carry, with me for my whole life as a poet, as a translator, as somebody who's interested in changing the way things are in my country. I'm speaking about Morocco as a native of Morocco, as a Berber. So I had the great honor and pleasure of meeting Michael McClure when I was there in the States in 2013 through my friend Mike Rothenberg, who organized the reading for us together at Mo's Books in Berkeley. And for me, it's an eternal memory that will always stay with me when Michael McClure showed up to our reading. And that was something I never expected in my whole life, and this has touched me deeply. And I came back to North Africa telling everybody about that I met Michael McClure. He came to my reading. And I've been studying his own work and the beats in general for years, since I was in high school. So shortly, I'm just going to read a poem that I translated into classical Arabic, and it was published in this beat anthology I did 2 years ago. It's called Action Philosophy. فلسفة الفعل. I can share the screen with you if you like. It's on my screen. But it's Matt, can I share this screen?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, it says I'm disabled, so you have to you just disable. If it's okay, if you can, I can just read it.
Go ahead, Habib.
Okay. فلسفة الفعل. أفضل الحكومات تلك التي تحكم أقل. دعني أتحرر من الأربطة والنزعات لأستبدل هيئتي بهيئة أخرى تكون أقل شبها بالروح. دعني أصير ذئبا يسروعا سمك سلمون أو ثعلب ماء أبحر في المياه الفضية تحت السماء الوردية. لو كنت عثة أو نسرا لرأيتني أحلق في السماء. أحب هذا اللحم الذي خلقت منه. أغوص فيه لأعثر على أبسط شكل حيوي. ما معنى الحرية عندما تجوع طبقة اجتماعية طبقة أخرى؟ ما معنى الحرية عندما تجوع طبقة اجتماعية طبقة أخرى؟ Thank you.
Eid Mubarak, Habib.
Thank you, bro. Thanks a lot. Eid Mubarak to you too. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Habib, can you send me back the host permissions?
Okay.
Matt, shall we open it up for discussion?
Yes, but I gave Al Habib host rights so that he could share his screen, but I need that back so I can unmute everybody.
Okay, I just changed it. Can you check?
Still showing on my end that you're the host. If you go to the participants list and click more by my name, and then you can enable host.
Okay. Yes, That. Okay. Yes. I just did it. Okay.
Okay, there we go. Okay, there. Everyone should be unmuted. So hopefully this goes well.
Well, I think people should unmute themselves when they have something to say. Otherwise, mute themselves and would be the best thing. So there's also the hand waving function and the chat function. But if anyone has any questions or comments or criticisms or rebuttals, Amy, do you want to chime in?
Unmute there. I would like to read a poem from Michael's new manuscript, Mule Kick Blues, which hopefully will someday be published. Number 3. A deep blue torture is fearing your death more than mine. White plum petals fall on snow. White plum. Number 3. A deep blue torture is fearing your death more than mine. White plum petals fall on snow in Chinese poetry. And the beauty of the streaming of all these shapes is fascinating. Your smell and touch move through mine like red and blue wildflowers in the meadow beyond brick wall. At night, the black cat would shred the calico cat, but there's a window between as they jump and growl. I think they love each other. Battling through walls is a deep blue torture. Your death would end spring. See, I forget the Dharma. To the sensual fly buzzing in my ear, I am a warm, good-tasting stone. Thank you, guys.
Okay, anyone else? Just unmute yourself if you want to chime in. That way we can keep from having the screen bounce around a lot.
Well, I'll just chime in real quick here to say that we visited with Michael and Amy in December. We told them about an anthology we're working on, Cascadian Zen. And so we were gifted a couple of those poems to publish in the anthology. And also through Dispatches from the Poetry Wars, their website, they have an eco-poetics anthology that's an online anthology. And a couple of Michael's poems from Mule Kick Blues are there. So if you just go to Dispatches for the from the Poetry Wars and go to the eco-poetics section, you can find them there. Dispatches from the Poetry Wars. And of course, if anyone needs any more information on any of this stuff, I'm available here. paulenelson.com, spladman@icloud.com. And, you know, the Undercommons was a literary salon. So I was hoping that there would be a little more give and take, a little more question. I see Sally. I don't know if Sally is wanting to chime in, but anyway, I'm glad that Jeff was able to make it, and everybody who attended. I'm glad you were able to make it here. I think you can tell how much Michael affected the people's, the lives of the people who are familiar with his work and his being. And I can't stress enough how much he really pulled me into my deeper self, really allowed me to become more truly who I am. And that is the most generous gift that anyone could ever give you. And he still does that through his poetry. I believe his poetry is a transmission. I believe it's an opening. It echoes Huayan Buddhism when you see lines like reflections of glimmering jewels on the opulent surface, making a surface for fingertips to touch, something like that. He's alluding to Huayan Buddhism and the jewel in Indra's net, where the universe is seen as a giant net, and at all the intersections is a jewel. And all those jewels are interconnected. You smudge one, and all of them are smudged. And those jewels are metaphors for human beings. So his sources were very, very deep. Clifford Still, Huayan Buddhism, Thelonious Monk, and you go on and on. And the depth of his influences, his sources, I think he would say, is just a whole lifetime's, several lifetimes worth of study. So very grateful to have known him and have had a chance to interview him and bring him up to Cascadia a couple of times. Just a true change of consciousness was enabled by meeting him.
Oh, Brendan, Richard, I saw you guys had unmuted yourselves if you want to chime in.
I don't have a question, but I'm still kind of absorbing all that I've heard. And there's so much depth to it, it's kind of hard to form a question at the moment. So. But yeah, he was an amazing poet, an amazing human being.
Michael is, yeah, it's one of the greatest events of my life, if not the greatest event of my life, was meeting Michael McClure. And it's, I don't really have a question. I thought maybe everybody could introduce themselves and just give a short one or two sentences about what Michael has meant to them, and or how they met Michael, or something like that. Sort of around, just go around and introduce yourselves.
Good suggestion.
Hi, I'm Tim Gosley from Victoria, Richard's land. And I got to do I'm a puppeteer. So I got to do a puppet show for Michael's 86th birthday, which is kind of a puppeteer kind of thing to do, but not usually for Michael McClure. And we did the Meatball, which is one of his plays from Gargoyle cartoons, between Geek, who I believe was an avatar of Michael, and Sleek, who was an avatar of Jim Morrison. And I believe they were on crunch hammers, whatever those are. And a very short excerpt would be, "We are the last magicians. And we are," excuse me, "we are the last magicians, and we are in a secret fort hovering over the city. With all of our secret carved antler tools in front of us, we are the last ones who know the rights. Thank you."
And thank you for doing that puppet play.
It was amazing. Yeah.
That I kept looking at Michael sitting next to me, and I think he grinned from ear to ear through the entire puppet play. It was perfect. If there's ever a video that was made, I would love to have it. Thank you, guys.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to do it again, I think.
That would be great. We should do it again. It was so amazing. Everybody, you missed the highlight of the century. It was the most extraordinary event, that puppet show. So it really should be repeated and filmed.
I thought it was filmed. There was a camera right behind Michael and I. No?
No, there was a live video on the stage that was kind of projecting images onto a screen. So
That's what that camera was.
yeah. It was multimedia, man.
It was very cool. Thank you, guys.
be
Thank
done
you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be repeated.
Yeah. We should do it. Unfortunately, without Michael, but he'll be there.
He'll be there.
He'll be there.
No problem. I'll just say something about playing with Michael.
I want to see your face, Carol.
Why can't you see my face?
There you go. Now I can see you.
I'll just
I want to see yours, Amy, a lot closer. But,
All right.
So we did we showed films at Tim's home, which is a theater, and a friend of mine was there, and the reading was scheduled for the next night, and at a jazz club, and I was going to do some jazz vocals beforehand, but my friend said, "Well, you play behind poets. I play piano, and why don't you see if Michael wants some music?" And I was like, "Oh no, that would be too intense, and I couldn't do that." And then I don't know, I mentioned it to Richard maybe, and anyhow, somehow I got the courage just kind of to mention it on the car drive home as we took Amy and Michael back to their place, and Michael was like so up for it, like right the very first second mentioned it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, let's practice tomorrow." And it's like, okay, I'll bring a keyboard to the hotel, and like we did that, and it was like so easy and so much fun, and then I mean, I was kind of terrified about the whole thing anyhow, because normally in this jazz club I just sing, I don't play, because the great players play there, and the great players that were all there for Michael, but so but I just thought, well, I can't think about any of that. I can't worry about anything. I just have to just be in the moment and respond. And I was able to do that. And it was so much fun. It was the best. The next time Michael came, we did it again. We had some different, we didn't have a real piano. We didn't have the grand piano, and we had another instrumentalist who was so in awe of Michael that he's an amazing horn player, but he was so in awe of Michael that he could hardly blow. So he just kind of held back, and so that didn't work out quite as we expected, but it was still grand, and it was such a privilege to have that experience, and it's one of those are memories that carry and will be there always. But the feeling I had when we heard of Michael's passing, I think I wrote you this, Amy, was that, it was terribly upsetting. But as soon as I tuned in to actually Michael, I just thought how absolutely joyous and mind blown he would be at the whole transition experience and finally seeing things from an out of body state. And so I get the feeling he's doing fine.
Yeah.
Doing better than I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Michael has been preparing for this his entire life, and he's a transcendent being. And I got to brag that my wife filled in for Ray Manzarek.
That's right, she did.
So hopefully that will last forever. Yeah.
I got a nice letter from Dorothy Manzarek, and she said, "Don't think me crazy, but I know it's going to be okay because Ray's there to greet him."
Yeah.
Right. Beautiful.
They're gathering together tonight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice to visit with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do it some more, I hope.
Yeah.
I know we will.
We will.
Well, Matt, maybe wrapping up with a bit of the Undercommons and the Literary Salon and what we hope to do with it in the future. We meet first Mondays generally. And any thoughts about that? If Sandra's still here, maybe she has some thoughts. Tom, Jeff, maybe you have some thoughts, but go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so I mean, normally we meet like every first Monday in the Columbia City at the here in Seattle at the Ethiopian restaurant that hopefully will survive the economic shutdown that we've got going on. They're always been really good at being a friendly place for us. So yeah, we've been meeting and discussing. We started off talking a lot about Denise Levertov and the kind of the ethics of writing through kind of political turmoil and conflict, and how do we handle ourselves in the world. And so when all of this started going down, it was great to be able to transition into this space temporarily, hopefully. But it's nice to have everybody here who normally wouldn't be able to be here with us. And that's one of the blessings, I think, of the Zoom space. So I'll open up, Jeffrey, if you had anything. I think Sandra kind of checked out already, but I don't know if you have anything to add, Jeffrey.
Yeah, just real quickly, Tom Sharp, like the last time we met, Tom studied with George Oppen, or he studied George Oppen and the objectivists, and gave us a little talk about them because it was his dissertation, so he really has an in-depth look, and he's a very much a poet himself. And so that was really fun because he was new. So he was, bringing something to us all that we, even I've known Tom for years, but actually I'd never really discussed this stuff with him. So it was really great for me to hear it all and to, talk to him about it more thoroughly. And so I think in the Undercommons, since we are doing it virtually, one of the advantages of this is we can have people from Calgary or Victoria or from Morocco, that matter, and it enables us to bring together the community in ways perhaps we hadn't completely considered before, and it's really great, of course, because it's centered on Michael McClure right now and people talking about him. I was thinking about it. The first poet I really read was Gary Schneider. I was raised in the Bay Area. And so Schneider was this, very accessible poet. And The Back Country, I read it. And then, of course, I read, Schneider said, well, Michael McClure, it's like, he's the closest thing we have to William Blake. And one thing leads to another. So, this great experience that we can share, this is really, really wonderful. And I hope that in the next month, we consider something, my problem is I was in Istanbul for many years living there. So if you ever want me to talk about Turkish poets, I suppose that would be what I would do, because it's something I can talk about with, I don't know about authority, but with certainly a lot of interest. So I think everyone's got to find their own things to share about poets they love. And that's important.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, that would be of interest to me. So we'll plan on meeting the first Monday in June. No, that's coming up in like a week or two. So we had been meeting in the evening. Tom is more available in the day. With the shelter in place, we're all available in the day. Billy Crystal said the other day, hey, I was just getting ready to not go out. So Matt has taken it upon himself to be sort of the coordinator of this. So Matt, you can maybe put your email address or some contact info in the chat room, and we can wrap this up, I think, with huge gratitude for having this experience. I don't know if you saw when when Amy was pointing things around, but there was the urn where Michael's ashes are. And, that was a really remarkable gesture for Amy to appear here and to be part of this. I know that it meant a lot to her as well, but meant a lot to me to see her there, and it made it all too real for me, which in a good way. So anyway, Matt, any last thoughts?
Okay, so yeah, I'm putting my email in the chat. So if anyone wants to be included on the Undercommons email announcements, just send me an email, and I'll make sure to add anyone to that. And we'll probably be doing a few Zoom sessions across the summer, and we can figure out like what we want to talk about. I don't think we discussed much beyond this particular event, but we'll do something early in June, and probably something again in July.
Thanks for your efforts, Matt. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Amalio, nice to see you pop in. Habib, great to see you. Richard, Carol, Linda, everybody, thanks for coming. Reynold, I appreciate that you were there. Sometime you and I will talk about McClure and his Subud Latian connection, because I really think the Ghost Tantras came out of Latian, directly out of Latian. I really believe that. So,
Sure.
Hey, Bill.
Well, I didn't meet Michael, but I did meet Allen Ginsberg when he came to the disco group. Michael.
All right. Bill, you got to be unmuted if you're trying to talk. Bill Mawini.
Okay.
There you go. Now you're off. Now you're on.
Oh, I just want to say, his laugh has become part of my bones. That's all. I've been tracking him since the 60s.
Nice line.
Yeah.
Thanks, all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.